would like to invite Mr. Shibulal, who is the co-founder of Infosys and trustee of Shibulal Family Philanthropic Initiative. Since the 1990s, Mr. Shibulal and Mrs. Kumari Shibulal have dedicated their philanthropic endeavors to education and innovation in the ecosystem. With his keen interest in improving education, he has supported several organizations across the country, one of the results being Edumentum. He recognizes the need for change makers and believes in equipping them with technology and resources to further their cause for education. I would also like to invite Ms. Dravina Seenivasan, co-founder of Kanavu Foundation, and Ms. Kavita Shah, co-founder of Neev Shikshan Sanstha, for leading today's fireside chat. Over to you, Shah.
Thank you, Leslie. Thank you, Leslie, so much. So, good morning, everyone. Let's hear it on the chat. How's the Josh today? First of all, I would like to thank Shibbu sir for this wonderful conversation. Dravina and on behalf of Edumentum, Dravina and I welcome Shibbu sir for an insightful conversation. Thank you, sir, for joining us this morning. We are excited to begin this conversation with an individual who has spent a significant part of his life empowering systems and leaders to drive large-scale transformation across India. In today's conversation, we are going to talk about the roadmap ahead, the scope of partnerships and collaborations, leadership, and more. So, let's get started. My first question to you, sir, is, children have been away from their classrooms for more than a year now. We saw some instances where schools were reopening, but they shut down due to the second wave. So, where are we really headed in terms of finding a sustainable learning environment for the students?
So, good morning, everyone. I think it's a pleasure for me to be here talking to all of you. We are in the middle of a pandemic, and it has been going on for the last 1.5 years. So recently I asked my grandson, actually somebody asked my grandson, which school you go to? And he very confidently said, Google school. Google school, because that is what he does. He attends school on Google, right? So he thinks it's Google school. So I think, we have gone through enormous amount of change over the last 1.5 years. And in many ways, we have been quite successful in using technology to address this current situation, even though there is a lot of there are a lot of areas where there is a lack of connectivity, lack of access, lack of device. We have been able to address the current challenge using technology. I also remember 2 weeks before the pandemic hit, that was on March 17th, I think Bangalore went to lockdown. 2 weeks before, there was a conversation in my school in Bangalore, and the teacher said it's impossible. There is really no way we can do this online. That was the answer we got. 2 weeks into the shutdown, that it only 2 weeks, everybody changed, and the entire school became completely online. And in fact, me and Kumari attended some of the classes, and we were amazed at the way the teachers transformed and took charge of the situation and addressed the children's needs. That is on the positive side. On the negative side, I feel that we have a sense of false security with technology at this point in time. We tend to believe that technology may solve all the problems in education. I think that is the false sense of security I feel about technology, given what we have done over the last 1.5 years. And that I don't agree with, right? Technology at best, not at best, can be an enabler, but not a substitute for human contact and human teaching. In my mind, teaching is a contact sport. It's like playing basketball. It's not, it's not even like playing tennis. Tennis, you stand on two sides, you can play. But basketball, you have to be together in one single court. And that includes all the actors. It is not only about, so to educate a child, you have a set of actors which needs to be present in the court, interacting with each other. It includes the teachers, the principals, the civil society, the parents, and the students. It's not one student, it is multiple students, right? Because children are not learning from just textbooks. They are learning from their peers, they are learning from their teachers, they are learning to interact, they are creating social skills. So in my mind, children needs three kind of challenges when they are going through education. Number one, of course, is the academic challenge, which you can probably provide lot of it on an online environment, but I still believe that it requires classroom setting. Second is the emotional challenge, right? They have to get to know how to deal with complex situations, how to handle conflict, how to handle ups and downs in their life as a group, not as an individual alone, right? Because you can fail as an individual and nobody will know, but when you face the group with your ups and downs, that's when you learn to be grounded or to be not bogged down, right? Those two extremes. So I think children needs, the second one is I think the emotional environment, and third is of course the physical environment, because children go to school not only to learn, they play together, they run around in the ground, they learn football, they learn basketball. These are all part of the learning process. So my view is that technology will be a very, very big part of our education system going forward. It will allow us to do things which we have never imagined before, because the barrier to technology has fallen drastically over the last, if there is one positive side to this whole disastrous situation, is that the barrier to technology has fallen drastically. But at the same time, we have to use technology very judiciously. It also requires us to reimagine the learning process itself. Just doing online class is not enough, right? There are pedagogical changes which we need to do even in online classes. So it requires pedagogical changes in offline, in person and online setting to make this effective. See, I want to borrow a term from the corporate world where we talk about omni-channel commerce, which means that you can have seamless commerce with an enterprise. You walk into the store, you buy something, you go online, you buy something. When you buy online, you can pick it up from the store. So there is a complete integration between the online and the offline environment in retail that they have tried very hard to make. If you want to use technology, I think that is the level of integration you need. You need to treat it as a omni-channel environment where the child and the teacher can move seamlessly between an offline and online, just not completely disconnected, right? So it has to jointly work together on all sides for all the players involved, and that means you have to reimagine how these two mediums of education, the in-person and the online, then there is offline, there is multiple of them, then there is, there are multiple methodologies which are available. So we need to reimagine how to make this completely seamless, completely integrated, completely child-centric, addressing all these three aspects of children's needs.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir. So what I'm hearing is kind of, taking the corporate word to our educational related language. I think the audience might relate to this word blended learning. We are all familiar with blended learning since a year now. So what I'm hearing from sir is we are looking forward to kind of blended learning for the very long term in the future. So building on that, sir, my next question to you is, now what can educational leaders and stakeholders do to continue transforming the way children learn and grow?
So, as I mentioned, this is in fact a very systemic change, right? This is not a change to just the child alone. This is not a change to the child's experience. It's not a change to the teacher's capabilities. It is a change to the system itself, right? And there are different players who have to play different things, in this ecosystem. That of course requires, in my mind, clear leadership, right? Leadership is required to change a system. So this is a systemic change. It requires leaders who understand, who can reimagine. We may not have, we don't have, not may not have, we don't have all the answers today. We have to build these answers together, right? And all the players in the ecosystem needs to come together and build this together. One thing is very clear, at least in the foreseeable future, and I think going forward, the parents' involvement in the child's education continue will have to, it has to be higher than what it was before, because today many parents spend considerable amount of time with their children, um, facilitating the education process. I think that is something which will have to continue. The teachers have to reimagine the classroom itself. How do you make this blended, what you call as the blended classroom, work seamlessly from one to another? Leveraging technology to fill the gaps, whether the gap is because of pandemic or distance or various other factors. So how do we how do we do that? Leaders have to come across as people who can drive that change. The change is always hard for any system. See, pandemic was a good leader in that sense because it forced everybody to change. There was really no choice. But we don't change that easily. So in a non-pandemic situation, to drive this change, we also have to address this whole issue of access, because while we live in Bangalore, we talk about blended learning, we talk about integrated approach. It's not easy for us to do it in remote parts of India. There are parts of India where there is no connectivity, there is no access, there is no device, all of those things. Um, so it is difficult for us to imagine that world. So we will have to reimagine that world also. There, technology can make a very big difference, but it requires very strong leadership to drive that change. So you have all the actors. You of course have the education leaders. You have the teachers who have to rethink. You have the parents who have to be participatory. The students have to also readjust to this new reality, right? They don't go to the Google school, they go to a school. Part of it happens to be on Google. So that is the other part. And then of course the civil society and the government, because we may even need policy changes, right? For example, this year we skipped the exams, right, in few grades. So right, so you know that we run Vidyadan program where we select students for scholarship. What we did was we did a proctored assessment, right? So instead of skipping, we did a proctored assessment, where proctored assessment is where you actually monitor the child when the exams are going on a. So I think we will have to evolve some of those things. In fact, I should say this. I was just imagining my daughter when she went to Haverford College in US, and my son also went there. Both went there. We were amazed that they could write their exam in their room. They don't, so they could write all the exams in their room, right? And we were. So when we call her, she will say, "No, Acha, I am in the middle of an exam." I say, "Where are you?" "I'm in my room." They are supposed to do closed book exam in the room. That is the level of trust they keep. They have methodologies to take care of it. It is not like it's a blind trust. Right? If you do a plagiarism or you do something else, they will figure it out. But the level of trust is so high that they could write half of the exams in their room. So we also need to rethink some of these, um, issues of trust, bringing everybody into the same classroom, 3 people standing there and doing the exam. It works at scale, but it can also be looked at, reimagined differently. So as I said, I think the ecosystem has to come together and work on these large issues and drive that change.
Okay, thank you, sir. Sir, Dravina will take over for the next section of this conversation. Over to you, Dravina.
Thank you, Kavita. So as you were sharing, there were so many stories of our children and teachers that was coming through me, and I was recalling the experience of the last 1.5 years. So for the next section, I think I'm going to talk to you about collaboration and collective effort within civil society organizations. So how do you think we as civil society organizations can collaborate while sharing the spirit and moving towards with this challenge, despite having very different ideologies while we work with one another?
So I think the first thing one needs to realize is that ideologies may be different, but the purpose is same, because all of you are here only for one purpose: to transform education. Right? You may, it's like I go from here to Jayanagar. There are multiple roads leading to Jayanagar, but I still have to get to Jayanagar, that's where I need to go. So I think it is important to remember the purpose. I think we get carried away in our, whether we should have blended learning, whether we should have classroom learning, or we should not, there's so many different ways to look at it, right? And also you have this whole issue of localization and contextualization, right? Because we operate in such a large country with so many different states and languages and culture and geographical variants, and variants in access, variants in school system, all of those. So it's very easy to get carried away on ideology, thinking that my ideology is the right, and all the ideology and that is so important to keep in mind, because the moment you focus on the purpose, because the purpose is common, right? The purpose is to improve our education system. The purpose is to transform our education leadership so that they can take on these big challenges. The purpose is to finally impact the 300 million children who are youngsters and people who are in school system. So, I was actually in another meeting a few days back, and I got a very drastic statistics. If you look at people who are below 25 or something, we have close to 500 million people. Whereas if you look at the entire school system, there are some 370 million. So we're missing about 130 million children in the school system itself. They are not part of anything. So we have huge amount of challenges, right? So at the moment you think your purpose is same, your purpose is to finally empower the children through education, and everything which you are doing is for that, then I think the commonality will set in. I think that is number one. Number two, I have always noticed, many years back, I was making a presentation in Singapore on Infosys, and there were all CEOs all around the world in that meeting. And I made this presentation. I gave complete details of Infosys, everything on the sheet of paper, everything. And they finally asked me, Shibu, you shared everything. We can go and do this. So where is the intellectual property? You shared everything. And they asked me a lot of, it was a 1 full day seminar. So they had a lot of time. And I finally told them, please remember, what I have shared you is all ideas, but you can't execute, only we can execute. So the uniqueness comes in execution, but we all think the uniqueness in the idea. Right? I have an idea about how to transform the school in my village. The other person has another idea about how to transform my school in my village. That is, yes, it is intellectual property. I have no doubt, but that does not make you unique. And that is, you can share it, but the other person may not be able to execute. Right? So uniqueness lies in our ability to execute, the ability to create that impact, the ability to be on the ground, work with the teachers. The same idea will not work in another location. For example, what works in Kannada is not going to work in Tamil Nadu, which means my idea, which is absolutely fabulous, absolutely relevant, absolutely capable of creating transformation in Karnataka, I give it to somebody in Tamil Nadu and we will completely fail. So the challenge starts, we forget our purpose. And the moment we think of purpose, we come together, we come to the common, we understand our commonality. Second is we confuse what is our capability. Is it intellectual property, this idea of transforming through an ideology, or it is our ability to execute. The moment you think of execution as your core competency, and that is not easily copied. It is very difficult to copy execution because the different place, different set of people, different interfaces. So then you can easily share. You can share your ideology, you can share your ideas, you can share your artifacts, you can share even your execution methodology without the fear of losing. I think many of these collaboration gets prevented because we have a sense of loss, right? And we confuse what is our core competency. So without a sense of loss, I have not seen execution being copied that easily anywhere. Right? Execution requires enormous amount of discipline, and it is not easily copied. So I've never seen execution being copied that easily. So one should boldly go and share and be very open about it. It will help you because you will learn from others, because others will share with you. You forget. When you share, you get 3 times or 10 times what you put into that equation. So you get more out of it than anybody else. That's number one. Number two, others benefit. So I think it's a phenomenal thing to collaborate and to co-create and to share without fear.
Thank you so much, sir. Those 1 year with Edumentum has definitely increased the purpose and has enabled us as Edumentum to collaborate with one another. So the second part of the question for me is, what's your perspective on the collaboration between the funding ecosystem and the civil society organizations? Do you, sir, believe there is a need to change the dynamics between the two?
Here again, I believe that the first and foremost thing is alignment of objectives. Right, the funding ecosystem has an objective. In many times, the funding ecosystem's objectives are, sometimes mid-term oriented rather than long-term oriented. I wouldn't say short-term oriented, but mid-term oriented rather than long-term oriented. Whereas the organizations which are built on this funding system have a long-term oriented approach, right? Because transforming the education system is not a 3-day or a 3-year job, it's a 30-year job. So many of you will spend your lifetime doing this, and whereas the funding ecosystem will keep evolving because funders' priorities do change. That's a fact of life, right? But it is very important to make sure that your objectives are aligned with the funders' objective, or you choose funders where there is an alignment. So, for example, if you go and get funding from somebody who is interested in sustainability for education transformation, I cannot believe it will last for a very long time, right? That's one first point I have. It is very important to have a clear impact understanding. What is the impact which the funder is expecting? What are you planning to provide? Right? It is very, very important to have that understanding. And in today's world, most funders will want to be involved, not on a day-to-day basis like Kumari is involved with, Shiksha Logam or anything like that, but they will want to be involved because they will want to be involved. And it is your responsibility to create the discipline of involvement. Involvement, it cannot be left to chance. It has to be left to a planned activity. So it is your responsibility to make sure that there is a discipline of engagement which is created. Some funders want to meet you once a month. Some may want to meet you once in a year. Some may want to meet you once a quarter. But it is your responsibility to set up that cadence, right? So that the objective misalignment does not happen over a period of time. And the impact is always, it's important to create the impact metrics, right? Which is clearly articulated, clearly visible, clearly. I am a very firm believer that what cannot be measured, it is not worth you spending your time on. So if you are going to tell me I'm going to do something, but I cannot measure the improvement, my answer to it is it is not worth your time. Anything in this universe can be measured. That is, I come from a very engineering background, so that is my very firm belief. The point I want to make is that there is a way to measure. If you cannot measure, then you don't know. You don't know what your baseline is. You don't know where you are tomorrow. You don't know where you are 1 month from now. It will be very hard for you yourself to understand the impact of your work. You will do this for 30 years or 10 years and you will look back and say, oh my God, what did I achieve? So it is important for everybody to have a very clear understanding. Sometimes it is a bit hazy because in long-term transformation, in a field like education, I understand. But you can still put in either direct impact metrics or proxy impact metrics, either of them, to make sure that you have a set of measurements which you can continue to keep in mind, right? And it is all about the journey rather than a destination. I think it's important to remember the funders and the actors have to remember that it's a journey. We will never reach the destination, and destination will keep moving anyways. So the question is, can you actually make that journey, and can you show continuous improvement during that journey? I think that is one way to look at the metrics and the impact. So three things. Number one, clear of alignment of objectives between the funder and the receiver. Second is a discipline of engagement. A discipline of engagement which you need to set up, which will be a cadence of reviews of whatever which will work for that funder and for you. Third is a clear articulation of what are you trying to achieve and how will you measure that impact. I think these three things it's very important for that relationship.
Thank you so much, sir. Over to you, Kavita.
Yeah. So the next round of conversation is we are going to focus on some encouraging words and for the graduating cohort. On behalf of all the social leaders and change entrepreneurs, on a day-to-day basis, while we are executing the programs, while we are driven to the purpose, on a day-to-day basis, we face many challenges. Okay, and some of them are highly intense, such as team building, relationship with the government, organization building, organizational structure, and everything. So, given all of those big challenges, day-to-day basis, decision making falls on us, on the founders, on the entrepreneurs. So, what do you think works while enabling decision making autonomy in the team, in the entire team structure?
So I think the CEO or the founder has to play multiple roles, right? Number one, he or she is the decision maker. There is no going away from this fact. Okay, it cannot be said that we will delegate all the decisions and we will, it is not possible. Finally, you are the decision maker. I think that is an acceptance not only for you, for the team. No point in shying away from this fact that it doesn't work, right? It actually creates a false sense of empowerment. It is not worth. It is not correct, because finally, you are the final decision maker, and I think that has to be very clear to everyone, including you. That is one. But at the same time, it is not your job to take all decisions. It's your job to facilitate that decision making. It is very good idea. It's not a good idea to take all the decisions. It's 90% of the time, what you need to do is to facilitate the decision making or co-create it with your team. So let's say you are expanding from from Karnataka to Tamil Nadu. It is better to be co-created, that decision to be co-created, because it will impact each and every one of the team member. It will impact the people who are benefiting from your programs. So a good founder or a CEO will finally always take the decision if he has to or she has to. But the approach always has to be facilitating that decision making, co-creating that decision with your members. Right? I think that is how a good founder has to work with the team. But at the same time, it is important for the team to understand that if there is a conflict between two parts of the team, finally, it is your responsibility to resolve that conflict. And a decision, in my mind, a bad decision is better than a no decision. A no decision is the worst situation you can be in.
ambiguity.
Okay, because that doesn't help anybody. Right? A bad decision is better than a good decision. So you will never have 100% of the information. You will only have 80% of the information. Good people, good founders, good decision makers always get 80% of their decisions right with 80% of the information. 20% of the decisions go wrong. 20% of the information you will never have. So decision making is a discipline by itself, and you have to keep this in mind that look, my best choice is to co-create the decision, facilitate the decision making. At the end of the day, if that doesn't happen and if there's a conflict within the group, I am the one who has to take the decision. It is very important to be transparent about why you took that decision. My experience is that every team will forgive you a good decision or a bad decision, provided it is not done with a personal benefit in mind. Any decision which you take, as long as it is seen and being as a decision meant for the ecosystem, meant for the team, people will accept. The issue comes up, and ego is not a good way to take a decision. It's always, ego is not a good way to take a decision. But finally, if you're seen as transparent, honest, and fair, people will accept your decision. So it's very important for you to be seen as transparent, honest, fair, and non-hierarchical. Then people will accept your decision. So first is, it is important to take the decision. Final responsibility is the decision is with founders, he or she. But the best option is to co-create or facilitate making those decisions. Now, if somebody takes a decision, it is also your responsibility to own up all the failures. It doesn't matter who took the decision, whether you or one of the team members. It is all the success goes to the team. All the failures come to you. It's very important to own up the mistakes of the team. Right? That is very important. That is what will give them the confidence to take the decisions. Otherwise, you will find a team who is always waiting for you to take the decision because they don't want to take any responsibility, because they don't want to take any failures on their shoulder. So always remember this: the credit goes to the team, the failures come to you.
Right.
So that is the last point I wanted to make.
Yeah, so I recollect often that it happens in my team, at least. I can speak only for myself. Many a times when day-to-day basis, when we make small errors, I always tell, it's good to make decisions. Errors are permissible. See, choti-moti errors can be auto-corrected, or course correction is on the go. But as you said, not making a decision is, bad decision is better than non-decision. So I kind of resonate with you personally. Moving on to our next question. So in this section, what would you recommend to the graduating edumentees to look out as they step into new chapter of their social entrepreneurship journey?
I think the first and foremost thing they need to do is to actually step out of the incubation mode. I think they are no more in incubation, right? They have been in incubation for the last 12 months. They have gotten a lot of knowledge, support. They have also gained a bunch of friends or colleagues through this process, right? Because now they are part of a collective, they are part of an ecosystem. They are not alone by themselves. Of course, the Edimentum team is there to support, but more importantly, most of the support will come from your peers. So it is time for them to step out of the incubation mode and become true leaders. And don't be afraid to fail. I think that's very important, because some of you will face failures one time or other, whether it is tomorrow or day after tomorrow. So don't be afraid to fail. Step out of the incubation mode and establish yourself as leaders, because you have the right to do it. You have gone through the program, you have gained a lot of skills and knowledge. You have gained a set of, you're part of an ecosystem. So establish yourself as leaders in that field going forward. Continue the collaboration, because Edimentum is all about, not only about learning but it's more about collaboration, right? You are expected to collaborate. You are part of a team. So continue the collaboration. Don't be afraid to share. Don't be afraid to ask. Don't be afraid to challenge or be challenged. And the best way for you to learn is let your peers challenge you. You go in and say, I am planning to do this. You tell me. Not that you always have to accept what they say, but it's important to hear out what they say. So you build collaboration with CSOs, CSRs, philanthropists, funders, but more importantly with your peers. Forget the ideology part. Focus on the purpose and come together as a team. See, do not choose something which is easy. That is very important. Anybody can do easy things. Right? Anybody can do easy things, right? You are here to do complex things. They do easy things anyone can do. And many times Kumari and me get asked this question about some of the difficult things we do. And we answer them, we do this because it is difficult. And also there is only fun in doing difficult things. Doing easy things, there is no fun. There is really no sense of achievement. There is no sense of fun. So take up some complex matter. That is why it is even more important to collaborate and take advice from others, because when you take up complex matters, you will not have all the answers. So you need that ecosystem to support. Lastly, anything which you are taking up, simple, complex, any one of those things, it is not a sprint. It is a marathon, right? So be willing to run that marathon. There is no easy track. There is no short track in this business. See, me and Kumari, we started in 99. So we look back, we started with the scholarship program for 2 children. That is what we started with, 2 children, which was a very easy thing to do, because I just walked into my school where I studied and said, give me 2 children and we will start, right? We soon realized that even that is complex, because we felt that very honestly, looking back, that 22 years back, we felt that our objective of the scholarship versus what everyone understood and selected, the children were not completely in sync. But we didn't get upset. We just, we didn't consider it as a big issue. We continued. Today we have probably 5,000 children in scholarship programs and all that all over the country. So it is a marathon. It is not a sprint. So you have to be willing to run that marathon. So the points I made was, number 1, take up something complex. Number 2, your incubation period is over. Continue to build bridges with the ecosystem and establish yourself as leaders. Finally, be ready to run that marathon.
Absolutely. Thank you so much for those wise words and kind of a prep talk. Now you are on your own. Oh, incubation khatam ho gaya hai. Not on your own in the very full sense of it. But yeah, it's time to move out of that nest and kuch karke dikhana hai ab. So moving on, we are going to have a very short round of rapid fire round. So I would request you to just state the answer, whatever comes top of your mind, right after the question is being asked. All right? Shall we move on to rapid fire?
Sure.
Okay. All right.
Sure. Go ahead.
Okay. So what do you recommend? Scaling an intervention over a large geography or seeding different interventions in small geography?
I think there is a certain scale which you need to reach before you start seeding multiple initiatives. If I look back at our own journey, we have scaled each one of them, but not at the same level. So we need to reach a certain level of scale. I am a person who believes in scale, so that reflects in my answer.
Okay, got it. On point.
So for the second question, on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being the highest, how would you recommend the need of communications in growing organizations?
Oh, it's very high. I would put it as between, see, everything which we talked about, decision making, collaboration, facilitating decision making, co-creating decisions, all that requires communication. So I would put it at around between 8 and 9.
Thank you. Awesome. What is your favorite part about what you do?
What is my favorite part about what I do? Ah, yes. So 3 days back I got so I get me and Kumari gets an invitation every week for a wedding. Every single week, almost we get an invitation for wedding. It would be the wedding of one of our children who are somehow we are connected, directly or indirectly. It would be one of the scholarship children. It would be one of the, now it's mostly the scholarship children because they are the older gang.
Right.
So we get invited to weddings. So we can actually have a full life just attending these weddings. So I think that is actually the most interesting part of our life, because we have the effort we have put in. And this is a very personal thing, right? Effort which we have put in over the years, because our scholarship program is for about 5 to 7 years. It starts in 11th and go all the way until end of engineering, end of medicine. In fact, 3 days back, I got a message that a girl in Kannur has just finished his MBBS, her MBBS, moving on to preparing for NEET. We had COVID warriors in Karnataka who were all in final year MBBS, and one of them actually got unwell. We had to intervene to. So these are all wonderful things, right? Because we get these mails every week. Either somebody is passing out with flying colors, or somebody has moved on, got a job, and getting married. In fact, about a week back or 3 weeks back, we got a mail. Both of us got a mail from one of our earliest students who is a neonatologist at Oxford. So he is married. He finished his complete studies. Becoming a neonatologist is like some 20 years of studies. He has finished all that, and they had a baby. He and his wife had a baby, and they had sent us a picture. So this is one of our earliest students. You're talking about, I don't know, 15, 16, 17 years. He is now in his 40s. He studied in RP Medical College, if I'm right. Kumari will know. But we got a picture of the baby. This is the best gift we can get. Right? It is amazing to see that. That is the best part of our life.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The next question is, what is a daily routine that you would never compromise on?
Exercise. I wake up, I usually do exercise because, as you see, I think if you want to do something tough with the complex things, you have to be fit.
Yeah.
You can say you want to run a marathon, but you are fat and overweight. You are not going to run it, right? The same problem. I think a lot of us forget that if you want to do something complex, you want to run this marathon, you have to be fit. And that fitness is in multiple levels. Number one, you have to be emotionally fit. You should be able to take that ups and downs with with broad shoulders. Otherwise you can't handle this, because you are always not going to have ups. You're always, many a times you're going to have down. So you should be able to take it on your chin with a smile and move on. So you have to have broad shoulders. That is emotional fitness or mental fitness, right? But physically unfit people cannot have mental fitness, in my mind. You have to be physically fit, right? It actually is a discipline, right? You learn discipline by remaining fit. So many of us take this excuse that I'm very busy, my work is so much, I have to, if I don't run the world, my world is on our shoulders. Believe me, world is not on our shoulders. World runs by itself. Yes, we can give our shoulder, it will run a little better, but finally the world will run. So it's not on our shoulders. So I think it is very, very important to be, if you want to run this marathon, if you want to make a serious contribution, you need to be fit in 3 dimensions. That means you have to be physically fit, you have to be emotionally fit, because you have to, and you have to be academically fit. That means you have to continue to learn with a lifelong learning approach. Right? Because whatever you have learned in the last 2 years is all obsolete in the next, in my mind, in the next 18 hours, but you can say 18 months, but it's all obsolete. So you really have to be fit in all the disciplines, physical, emotional, and on the knowledge side or the academic side, continuously.
Okay. Awesome. I think sometimes I fall into that trap of there's so much on my shoulder, I can't do this about the exercise bit. So I am guilty of it. I acknowledge it. So the last question to you, sir, is many among us look up to you for your, be kind of inspired from you, from your wisdom. So who do you look up to?
Oh, so my life has been absolutely gifted. And I think it's very important to know my life has been absolutely gifted. I have worked with some of the most wonderful people one can work with, right? And I've learned from all of them. So of course, you all know many of those people. So I work with Mr. Murthy, who is a master in leadership. So everything which I told you about decision making, about consensus building, and taking the final decision on the shoulder, I would have learned from Mr. Murthy. Then I, of course, worked with Chris Gopalakrishnan, who is one of the best innovators which I have seen. Lateral thinking, Mohandas Pai, whose financial acumen is matched with no one. So just competing with him will make me one of the best financial minds. I have not, so I have not reached that stage, but of course, I used to work with Dinesh, who is a stickler for quality. I have worked with so many people. At the end of the day, so I also used to see the learning. I think most of us looked up. I don't believe in this. You have to look at all sides. Let me put it this way. So I have a person who manages my office today, Sunita Shenoy. She has been with me from '96. She had taken a break. She came back. She is a role model to look at. Right, 24 years she has worked with me. Right, enormous amount of discipline. So I had another under her. There was a person by the name Mohan who used to work for me, and he he just used to help me out in the office. But for commitment and loyalty and there is no one comparable. He will be there every day before I reach the office. He will leave only after I leave. He will make sure that he's like my mother. Sir, you have to drink water. You have to get up. Your back will be. But it all shows that level of discipline and commitment. So one has learned from everyone. So I think this looking up in my mind is actually looking at everybody whom you work with, and there is all the time you can learn something from everyone.
Right.
There is no one from whom you can learn everything, but there is something you can learn from everybody. So that's how you need to learn.
Thank you so much, sir. So on that note, we've come to the end of this conversation. First of all, I'd like to thank Shibu sir for this wonderful conversation. It's been a really enriching experience for both Kavita, me, and the audience as well. As an education leader from the graduating cohort, this conversation has pushed me to think of the large role that every stakeholder must play towards enabling learning for all our children. It has made me reimagine the extent of collaboration that's necessary and the extent of integration that's necessary towards meaningful impact. A key idea that I'm taking back from this conversation to my team is that this is a contact sport. Come together, be transparent, and choose to do something very difficult and choose to do something complex. This journey with Elementum for us has enabled us to keep taking those difficult choices and do meaningful work for the long term. And this conversation today has given me the boost and energy to continue doing this in the long term and possibly see what this looks like maybe 15, 20 years down the line. I believe it would have been an enriching conversation for all of you. Thank you, Shibu sir. Thank you, Kavita, and thank you, everybody.